Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my video all for the Last of Us HBO series that they just announced. They dropped a teaser, so I'll explain what's going on, because they also announced that there's a new PlayStation TV studio that's developing a bunch of series with HBO. If you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Of course, I'll be doing episode videos for this when it starts. So we'll start with all the Last of Us stuff, and then I'll talk about the other PlayStation TV series that HBO is developing. We'll just do this top 5 style, starting with number 5. If you missed the news on social yesterday, HBO and Naughty Dog, the developer of The Last of Us, said that they had a Last of Us TV series coming to HBO very soon. It's sort of them doing their version of what Marvel is doing with the Disney Plus series, with the big Marvel Phase 4 trailer that we just saw, like the Wandavision trailer, the Falcon and Winter Soldier trailer, the Loki trailer, all the other stuff that it's working on. They haven't started filming yet, but that's basically them saying that the release date is probably going to be sometime late 2021. They haven't announced a cast yet, so you're free to fan cast Ellie and Joel. Everyone's been all over the map the last day with their fan cast. When they first released the game back in 2013, a lot of people were like, Maisie Williams would make a great Ellie. But now I'm thinking that Daphne Keane from the Logan movie X-23 would make a great version of that character. She's already under contract with HBO for another series, so they already have her in-house. And remember when the Logan movie came out, they were like Wolverine and X-23, X-Men, The Last of Us, just saying that the plot of the Logan movie was very similar to the plot of The Last of Us video game. And as cool as it would be for Hugh Jackman to play Joel, I don't think there's any chance of Hugh Jackman doing a long-running HBO series like this. And if everything goes well, I think it'll probably run for around 5 to 7 seasons with the standard 10 episodes per season. Everyone post your picks for Ellie and Joel in the comments below. Who do you want to play those characters? The person that's show-running the series is the person behind HBO's Chernobyl miniseries, which I think was really solid, so I think he's a pretty good pick. He's a huge fan of the video game. He even posted his list of favorite video games, so he seems pretty legit. The original Last of Us game came out back in 2013. The Last of Us Part 2, the sequel game, is coming out in a couple months, so that's why they're making this HBO announcement of the series right now, just because they're capitalizing on people getting ready to get hyped up for the new sequel game. Number 4, you're all asking, during the first episode, when is the story going to pick up in the timeline, and what are the main characters going to be during the first season? Based on HBO's announcement, it sounds like the first couple of seasons will cover the events of the first game, with potential for them to cover the plot of The Last of Us sequel game in later seasons, just depending on how long the series runs for. If you've never played the game before, it's an amazing game, you should try it at some point, but the story plays basically like a 6-hour game if you watch all the cutscenes.
We're smuggling her?
There's a crew of Fireflies that'll meet you at the Capitol building.
So imagine them breaking up all the cutscenes from the game into a couple different seasons and then just expanding a lot of the story between the major WTF moments of the games, giving them more time for character development and bigger side characters, more side quests, and obviously the main characters of the series are of course Joel and Ellie. Joel is a smuggler working between the quarantine zones who's hired by the Fireflies militia to smuggle a 14-year-old girl named Ellie to their facility in Salt Lake City, where they think they can use her to develop a cure for the fungus pathogen that's mutating everyone into zombies. They've never revealed the true origin of the fungus, as if there's some sort of nefarious origin to it, the same way that The Walking Dead has never revealed the origin of the zombie virus. There are some basic surface-level connections you could make between the story of The Walking Dead and some of the stuff that's going on during The Last of Us, because they're both post-apocalyptic, zombie-based stories. But they're both very different. If you've ever played the game, you totally understand why. But obviously, if you've never played the game, number 3, who are the villains? Well, the main villain is really the zombie fungus itself, infecting everyone. Even though there are human groups of villains that Joel and Ellie run into along the way, people are just as terrible. If you've ever watched any Walking Dead episode, you kind of get that post-apocalyptic environment. But no joke, this is actually pretty scary. There's a real-world inspiration, a basis for the zombie fungus of the Last of Us game. So there's a fungus that affects insects by growing inside them, slowly replacing the insect's organic tissue with its own fungus. While that slowly happens, it effectively turns the insects into zombies, going around infecting other insects in its hive. It's just that within the world of the Last of Us game, the insect fungus mutates and starts to affect people. Then over the course of 20 years, during the present day of the story, most of the world has been affected. So the outbreak isn't quite as sudden and doesn't move quite as fast as the timeline of The Walking Dead. The series refers to its zombies as quote-unquote the infected, mostly for copyright issues. I believe the term zombie is copyrighted. That's also why The Walking Dead has quote-unquote walkers instead of calling them zombies, just for copyright issues. Within the world of the story, the infected usually infect other people by biting them, deep scratches that break the skin, the usual fare of this genre. The thing that really sets the story off, though, is that the Fireflies militia and Joel find out that Ellie was infected several weeks ago, and for some reason, for whatever reason, she hasn't shown any of the usual symptoms of the infected, so they think that she's got some weird genetic immunity to it, and they want to use her to try and develop a cure to the disease. But later they find out it's way more complicated than that. Ellie isn't immune to the disease the way they thought that she was immune initially. I don't want to spoil the ending of the game for people that have never played it, but there are a couple big twists. A lot of seemingly good people and allies wind up making some really hard choices, alliances are broken, friends become enemies, the typical things that you expect from a post-apocalyptic story like this. And if it wasn't clear as part of that HBO teaser, this symbol that they tweeted out yesterday, this is the symbol of the Fireflies militia. Number 2 though, what about the other PlayStation TV shows HBO said it's developing? They said that this is the first of many series that it's developing with PlayStation Studios. What happened recently is that Sony created a special TV division to develop series based on the game's IP that it owns, called PlayStation Studios. My great hope is that God of War will be one of those new series. It would be amazing, and Sony owns the game studio that makes the game, meaning they own all that IP. That increases its chances exponentially. It's a big deal that they own all that themselves. They don't have to pay special license fees like HBO had to pay to George R.R. Martin when they started doing Game of Thrones. The other big thing about God of War is that it feels different enough from Game of Thrones that it doesn't feel like the exact same thing.
We are not men. We are more than that. The responsibility is far greater.
Doesn't it feel like if they did it right, that would be the most epic thing ever next to Game of Thrones? And that's exactly why I don't think HBO's ever going to do an Elder Scrolls series. The medieval setting just feels too similar to Game of Thrones, and HBO's already committed to multiple Game of Thrones spin-offs right now. First big one being the Targaryen prequel called House of the Dragon. It's been a while since they've given us an update on that, but I will be doing Game of Thrones prequel episode videos just like I did for the main series. The next big one that Sony is working on through PlayStation TV is a Final Fantasy TV series. That seems like they should have done that a long time ago, just easy slam dunk with the success of Game of Thrones. People love big fantasy as long as you do it right. Of course, Final Fantasy has all that. The thing about that, though, is that it's not going to air on HBO. Sony hasn't said where it will go, but obviously Final Fantasy is also too similar to Game of Thrones to also be on HBO, so it'll just be on some other network. In number 1, the other major, easy slam dunk pick for a new PlayStation HBO TV series would be for them to do a Nathan Drake Uncharted series after they finish the Tom Holland Uncharted movie. If you never saw it, Nathan Fillion himself, Mr. TV, made an Uncharted fan film. It plays a lot like a pilot for an Uncharted HBO TV series. Here's a clip from that.
So what's this then?
Our next stop.
Well, I understand the weather in the Philippines is particularly fine this time of year.
For those of you that are wondering, yes, that was Stephen Lang that just showed up in the Uncharted fan film, and the story behind that is that Naughty Dog made that themselves. Remember, they're also owned by Sony, who owns the Uncharted IP, meaning it's way cheaper for them to develop a TV series based on Uncharted. But because the Tom Holland movies are happening right now, I think it's going to be a little while before we see an Uncharted TV series, but of course, they have one in development. So everyone just let me know in the comments, how do you want HBO to handle the Last of Us series, and who do you want to play Ellie and Joel? I'll do more videos for the series when we get some more announcements from them on the details, and pray to Kratos that we get a God of War series, because that would be amazing. Marvel just made a whole bunch of announcements about what's going on with the Hulk in new movies and TV shows during Marvel Phase 4. Click here to learn about that. and click here for my Game of Thrones prequel teaser trailer video. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.